do this. Guys, it is so great to be here. It's kind of weird for me. I'm not having anybody out there to have, kind of snickering or making comments or talking or whatever. So it's just really quiet. But it's so great to be back here in the youth room and so great to be talking to you guys. I have the privilege tonight of being able to kind of go back to where we were starting out a little while ago, back into Matthew 7. If you're, for those of you that are on the live stream, this is, we'll be reading out of Matthew 7, 13 through 14. So you can go ahead and just, get that laid out on your Bible or your phone or whatever you've got in front of you. But we'll be in Matthew 7, 13 through 14. How many of you guys have ever gone camping? And then, usually for me, when I was growing up, it was like every summer we would go camping. When I was really little, up until probably about junior high, we would go camping every summer. We went to the Black Hills, Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone. We kind of went west. We really went west. We used to live in Pierre, so we always kind of headed out towards the west. And so we would go camping a lot. And we had a little pop-up camper, and it was, you get it all set up, and then you go and you're out getting poison ivy or whatever. It was just being a kid. But we would always take family hikes. And so we'd be on these hikes, and my brother is about 3.5, almost 4 years older than I am. And so we'd be out hiking, and we'd always come on any trail. You'd come to a fork in the road. You'd be sitting there going, okay, which one are we going to take here? Which one are we going to take? And there was always the easier path. It was really big. It was a big path. You could tell that it had been taken quite a bit. It was a pretty common trail. And it would say like, beautiful lake ahead or whatever the name of the lake was. And there was a lake access there. And so you could take the very large trail that everyone had taken and take that down to the lake and right along the water. And it was always beautiful. But my parents didn't always want to take the smaller path because my dad is just he's got some health things that he's had all his life. And so his feet have never been great. Like as long as I've been alive, they haven't been great. And so he physically couldn't do those harder trails because it would hurt his feet and he couldn't do it. So we would always ask our parents, my brother and I, we'd be like, hey, can we take that other trail? We want to see what that one's like. I know it's gonna be harder. It's gonna be a challenge, but can we take that trail? And usually they would say no, just because we were young and we didn't want to be sent off by ourselves. But as we got older, we would take that trail. They would let us take that trail, and it was always hard. Uphill, everything in the trail, up over trees and everything like that. You'd go skidding back down the trail halfway. It was tough. But then when we finally got to the top, we were able to say, oh, we made it. We finally made it. You were able to look out over top of the lake, see all the people down there who had taken the other path or whatever, and they were down by the lake, but you could see out over the lake. You could see all the way to almost, sometimes you couldn't even see the other side of the lake because it was just that big, crystal clear blue water, and it was just absolutely beautiful. God's creation glowing before you and saying like, man, that is beautiful. We made it up here. That's awesome. Let's dive in here for a little bit. Let's go to Matthew chapter 7, verses 13 through 14. We'll read it here. It says, enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. I'll read that one more time here just so we get a good sense of it here. Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. Now going into verse 14, it says, for the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who find it. So going back, it talks here about having two paths to take. And I think a lot of us have faced that in our lives, whether it be, when we were on those hikes, we had two paths to take. For you seniors, you're kind of trying to figure it out. You got what two paths to take. You're at the fork in the road. I mean, you're literally either going down the one path or going down the other path. You were at a fork in the road. Do I go to college? Do I go to the workforce? Do I take a year off and just try and figure it out? What do I want to do? For you guys that are the underclassmen, you're getting to that fork. You're kind of going through the motions of going through high school and everything that goes along with that. But yeah, you're getting your way towards that fork, and you're trying to figure it out now ahead of time. You've looked at the map, and you're kind of like, what do I want to do? Starting to look at maybe colleges and stuff like that. But for me personally, I hit a fork in the road in high school. What do I want to do? Do I want to go into the workforce? I was working at a pizza restaurant, and it's like, I'm not doing too bad here. I like my job, the people I work with, and everything like that. But I want to go to college. So I made a choice to go to South Dakota State University. So that was in 2014. I graduated high school. Just to let you guys know how old I am. I graduated high school in 2014 and made the decision to go to South Dakota State. So that was one of the forks in the road that I came to in high school. There was another fork in the road that I came to in high school, and that really was the broad way or the narrow way. I grew up in a Christian house. We went to church every Sunday, mission trips, Wednesday nights when we could make it sometimes. Most of the time when I was little, we would go every Wednesday. When we moved to Minnesota, we went to a church that was half an hour away, so it was a little harder to make it twice a week, but we would go when we could. And so, I was a Christian, so I thought. I asked to be saved when I was 3 and got baptized at 8, and I thought I was doing pretty good. And then I got into high school, and 9th grade was pretty good. But then my brother graduated when I was in 9th grade, and I got to 10th grade, and that's when I abruptly came to that fork in the road. And that fork in the road was, do I take the narrow way and, that few people take, and that was to stay with the faith and still keep doing what I was doing, or do I take the broad way? And the broad way just looked easier. Like I said earlier, looking at those paths, that one path was super hard. It looked really hard. And that other path, like a lot of people had been on it, it was pretty beaten down. It looked like a pretty easy path. So I started to take that pretty easy path in high school, which by the time I got to college and throughout my first year of college, I was in a full-on sprint down the Broadway. I was drinking heavily. I was trying or dabbling into drugs a little bit, addicted to pornography, and I was headed towards that. At the end of verse 13, it says that leads to destruction. I was sprinting to destruction, just full-on sprinting to destruction. So yeah, I was faced with those two roads. Which road do I take? That one looked super easy, and the other one just looked like hard work. And so I was about to a breaking point, sprinting down almost to the lake. On that, how I said you take that broad path and you get down to the lake. I mean, I was about there, and I moved out of SDSU. Thought I was going to be going back. Hit another fork in the road where I was like, I don't want to go back. That's not what I want to do. Now what do I do? And that's how I ended up in Sioux Falls. I went to Southeast Tech for diesel. And so that's how I ended up in Sioux Falls. But there was a small little church in the town that I was living in. After I went to SDSU, I took a job as a crop scout, an agronomy intern. I thought I wanted to be an agronomist, and turns out I didn't. But yeah, I went to this small little church because I knew my dad wasn't going to quit asking, because he knew I was sprinting down that broad path. He knew I was running down that path, and so he was pretty hard on me to say like, hey, like you should find a church here. There's a bunch of churches in this town. There's a town of 300 people with like 5 or 6 churches. It was ridiculous. And so I went to this church that was a packed Sunday, 40 people. And I mean, 40 people, and we were packed out. Like you couldn't fit another person in there. And that little church was all that I needed. They showed me what the true love of Christ really was to this broken down college student who thought he knew what he was doing, thought he knew what he wanted, thought he knew which path he was going to take and which path was going to be best for him. And they were able to reach in and grab me and stop me before I hit that lake and turn me around and help me back up that path. And that was not easy. By any means was that easy, getting back up that path. For you guys that are, especially for those of you that go to Roosevelt, you know how packed a high school hallway can get. When the bell rings and you need to go one way and everybody's coming this way, that's how it is. That's how that broad path is. You're bolting down that path and all of a sudden, I gotta go this way. I gotta go back to the fork in the road and make a decision again. And you're fighting through all these people and you're getting pulled back, you're getting forward. Finally, you break through everybody and you get back to that fork in the road where you're like, well, the broad path is a narrow path. And you look at that narrow path and you're looking up at it. And, for those of you that have gone hiking and been in that situation where you're looking at a narrow path that be the hard trail, you're looking at that trail going, boy, that is straight up. That is not going to be easy. And the scriptures tell us, it's not going to be easy. It says here, in verse 14, it says, gotta get my glasses here. It says in verse 14, it says, for the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who find it. Now that just hits me. There are few who find it. The way is narrow that leads to life. And it's small and the gate is narrow. Everything about that statement just screams like this is gonna be hard. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it is gonna be hard. This Christian walk that we have, no one said it's gonna be easy. Being a Christian isn't easy. You're gonna have hard times going up that path. For me, who's someone who had run so hard down that other path, you get back and you start going up that narrow path, going through the narrow gate, and it's not easy. You start going up and you're like, oh man, this is hard. This is hard. So you start sliding back. You're on loose gravel, the part of the path that's loose gravel, and you start sliding back. Back towards that broad path, back to the drinking, the drugs, the porn, the whatever it is that you're dealing with. You start working your way back, and then, nope, I want to make it to the top. I want to see what's at the top of this trail. So you fight through those parts. You fight through the slick gravel, whatever it is, rain, mud, whatever. And finally, you're fighting, and eventually it starts to get easier. It'll start to get easier to deal with. At first it can be really hard dealing with, for those that have a reputation of being a certain thing and you're wanting to change that. One of the big things for me when I was in college was, well, do I go to church or do I just stay up and party and then skip church in the morning? Or do I tell everybody that I have to go to bed because I got to get up for church in the morning, and that's not going to be, what are they going to say? What are they going to think? And, I would hit that crossroad myself. But eventually, the more that you do it, the easier it gets. It's still going to be hard. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to be easy the whole way up. You're going to have easier parts, and then you're going to have hard parts. It's going to be up and down. But finally, you're going to be able to make it to the top and say, I made it. You're going to be able to get to the top, look out over God's creation, over the lake, look down, that you'll be able to see that path that you were on. Being able to be at the top, say, I made it. I finally made it. I fought so hard to get here. I fought through thirst. I fought through slick spots, sliding back, having to take a rest, but I finally made it up here. And that's what I want for you guys, is to be able to have those moments where you're going to wrestle with your faith, and that's okay. I'm here to say that it's okay to wrestle with your faith and to wrestle with God. You're going to have those times where you're looking at 2 paths to take. Like I said, you seniors, you're going to be, your juniors, or you're at that crossroad where you're like, well, which path am I going to take here? Am I going to go to school? Am I going to go to work? You're going to have those different times, but you're going to have them in your faith too. Do I go to the party? Do I stay home? Do I go to youth group, or do I go to the party? Do I start silently rebelling, or do I not rebel? You're going to face those times, and what I would love to hear your stories. If you've been in that situation where you've been at the crossroads and you're trying to figure it out. If you're at those crossroads right now and you're trying to figure it out, reach out to me, to Zach, your youth leaders. We're here to help you guys. We love you guys. That's why we're here, is to help you through these situations where you're faced with a hardship, whether it be in school, what you want to do with your life, or in your faith. You're stuck at those points where you're wrestling with God, saying, which route do I want to go? What do I believe? We're here to help you guys with that. We would love to be able to have you guys come to us and say, hey, I made it. I made it. I fought the good fight. I got up that narrow path. I got through that hard path. I was able to get to the top. I made it. Look out over everything and say, I made it. And that's what we want for you guys. We don't want you to be running down that path. And if you are running down that path and this speaks to you, like I said, reach out to Zach, me, your youth leaders. Like I had that church that was packed at 40 people. 40 people when we were packed. They were able to pull me out of that path. All it takes is one person, one group of people to pull you back off of that path and say, hey, let's go back. Let's take that hard path. We've seen what this path kind of looks like. Let's go try the harder path. And then you'll be able to say, I made it. This is where I am. This is where I want to be. And that's what I'm hoping for you guys. That's what I think all of us here as your LSM leaders are hoping and praying, that you guys be able to fight the good fight, get through those hardships. You're going to face those hardships. You're going to face those 2 different paths. But we're here praying for you guys that if you're in those situations, come and talk to us. If you've had a victory over those situations, come and talk to us. If you failed those situations, we're here for you guys. We love you guys. Miss you guys. I hope we can see you again soon. I'm Chris, and I just can't wait to see you guys again. Thank you, Zach, for letting me have this opportunity to speak before you guys tonight. Thanks.